You're seeing a lot of new folks coming into the organization that are so used to technology, they don't really think about it. But what's interesting is when they come into the walls of the organization, we're trying to train them to not have the same expectations that they've had before, right? Because their expectations of technology in their personal life is all the way up here. And that's where we want to keep them when they come through the door. We don't want them to say, okay, because you're working in industrial distribution, we're a little, that industry is a little behind the technology. Don't expect this low bar. Keep your expectations where you would expect it as an individual outside these walls and help us push the organization there.
So when it comes to investing in technology, sometimes technology is expensive. Let's say you're going to invest in a new technology. So what is your expectation?
I typically have the expectation that it's going to pay for itself in 6 to 12 months. It used to be you'd sign a 3-year contract and expect a 3-year contract would be ROI positive. It's moving so fast and there's so many things popping up with the efficiency gains and all the rest. You haven't solved the right problem, right? You've solved the symptom of the challenge and not the right problem, because the right problem will start presenting itself.
What percentage of my total revenue should be invested in technology, as a distributor?
We just launched an e-commerce site, a new e-commerce site 12 months ago. It took a significant lift to get that out the door, and then that investment comes down. And now it's generating its ROI. And so it's going to ebb and flow, but I typically think between 5 and 6% for just straight infrastructure.
There's a lot of talk about AI taking away jobs, and that's more prominent, especially in distribution.
It's not AI that's going to take someone's job. It's someone that uses AI that's going to take your job.
How can we learn from the leaders, educators, and experts in our industry? What can we take away from their successes and failures? How can we apply this to our businesses, our careers, and our lives? This is what we are here to find out. I'm your host, Karthik Chidambaram, CEO of DC Cap. We make systems, talk to each other for manufacturers and distributors. I love to learn and share the knowledge with others. This podcast is about having meaningful conversations that we can all learn from. Thank you for being here, and I hope you enjoy this conversation. Hello, everyone. Welcome to a new episode of the Driven by DC Cap podcast. Stephan Fulop is the Chief Product and Technology Officer at the Dakota Supply Group. His impressive career spans retail, healthcare, and e-commerce, from being a Senior Vice President at Optum to driving digital transformation at Target. Stephan, welcome to the show. Really excited to be talking to you today. Tell us about the Dakota Supply Group.
Yeah, so we're an industrial distributor. We're over 125 years old, or 125 years young, as we like to put it. And we're kind of special in the industry. We're in 8 segments. So we have our core segments of electrical and HVAC and plumbing, and then we also serve sewer, water, well, waterworks. But probably one of the biggest things about us is we're employee-owned, and we're 100% employee-owned. So every single employee within the organization owns a piece of the company. And that's super important to us as an organization, but it's also the leadership and the individuals.
And being employee-owned really helps with the culture, right? Because you feel as being a part of the owner of the company, and that goes a long way. Do you see the difference because you worked at Optum and you worked at Target and now at DSG? So do you see the difference in the impact?
It's immensely different. I think from an employee perspective, it's the empowerment to help us make decisions and have a conversation with us. From an executive level, it changes your decision making, right? At Optum, at a Fortune 5, I know I have shareholders, but I don't see the shareholders on a regular basis. With DSG, I walk out of my office and I see my shareholders sitting around me, and it really kind of centers you on what are the decisions you're making to create value for the organization and value to the individuals, because that's what they're there for, right? It's not only their salary, but also how do they get that retirement account from the ESOP, and how do they build wealth for the next generation that's coming?
And you are one of the shareholders as well.
Yeah, I'm fortunate enough that we actually made some changes last year. It was going to take me 2 years to join the ESOP, and now we join when you first joined the company. So I was able to join 18 months early. I mean, that was huge for me and huge for all of our employees that we're sitting there waiting to get that and waiting for the value to see it. It really puts it in perspective when you start.
And DSG is headquartered in Fargo. That's where you guys started, but then you have offices across the U.S.
So we were founded in Fargo. We're actually headquartered in Plymouth, Minnesota, and we're everywhere from Montana to Michigan. So we're a Midwest company.
So you have had a very impressive career, right? So tech, very impressive. Worked at Optum, healthcare, and then you also worked at Target, completely different companies. And then now you joined DSG, distributor, right?
Yep.
So how was that experience working at Optum and Target? And how are you applying those learnings at DSG?
It's funny because when you look at digital in the Minneapolis market is really small. Digital and industrial distribution is very small. So it's interesting. You learn a lot about the technology and the consumer and putting the consumer at the center of everything. So that really transforms where I'm at with industrial distribution. And it's super important to me that we're exceeding the expectations of our customers, but even better than that, we're exceeding the expectations of our employees, right? Because they're using digital systems, they're looking at screens. And as much as we want to focus there, from a healthcare perspective, I learned a lot, whether it's regulatory or working across the aisle in a large organization, right? It's bringing people along, having the conversation, that understanding where you're going and why you're going there so that it's not just you pulling along. That to me actually helped me a ton in DSG because being employee owned, if we can guide and give the vision of where we're heading, the employees buy in really quickly and start joining us on that mission.
And you help drive digital transformation at Target and also at Optum, right? So, I use target.com, I like it, right? So, so it makes it easy, right? So the adoption on the B2C is faster, right? And then, hey, whatever we need, right? And if we are mad, then we really tell Target, hey, we don't like it, right? So we tell Target like that, right? But then how do you see the technology adoption amongst your employees at DSG and also your customers?
We're seeing the entire organization shift. You're seeing a lot of new folks coming into the organization that are so used to technology, they don't really think about it. And what's interesting is when they come into the walls of the organization, we're trying to train them to not have the same expectations that they've had before, right? Because their expectations of technology in their personal life is all the way up here. And that's where we want to keep them when they come through the door. We don't want them to say, okay, because you're working in industrial distribution, we're a little, that industry is a little behind the technology. Don't expect this low bar. Keep your expectations where you would expect it as an individual outside these walls and help us push the organization there. Because they're used to Instacart, they're used to DoorDash, they're used to all of these things that are at their fingertips. That's what we want to give them internally and make them more efficient and allow them to serve our customers better.
And are you able to make progress to that level in terms of, are you able to get those experiences translated?
We're starting to, right? The last 18 months I've been in the organization is really laying the foundation of the technology stack and making it flexible and making it, so you can actually adapt it. And now we're at the moment where we're starting to change those experiences for our customers and employees.
And you talked about being employee owned and also about experiences, right? So it's not just don't come with a low bar, expect really big things, right? So I think that's really well said. You talked about setting the bar really high, right? And you talked about also being employee owned, and there's also a changing workforce dynamic, right? So because a lot of people in industrial distribution are retiring and a lot of new people are coming, right? So is that also helping you in a way?
It is helping us. It's helping us in two ways. One, the new people coming into the organization expect technology and everything else. But what's also interesting is the people that are starting to retire from the organization, that technology is able to start storing the information that's been in their head, right? So if you think about a customer coming in to look for a product, the person behind the counter for 20 years knows exactly what that product is in the system. He's probably written the description of it, and he's trained countless people coming through. Well, the moment that person retires, all that knowledge is lost. But now you have systems with AI and other learning where you can start using those individuals as they retire to start training. And it really kicks the leg up for the people coming through the door that have to learn these things to start with.
And what are some of the initiatives you're doing on that front, right? Because I think whatever you're doing there can actually help a lot of distributors out there, because everybody is pretty much on the same boat and they have the same problem, right? So what is that you're doing at DSG? Let's say, there is a retiring workforce and there's a lot of knowledge, wealth of knowledge. You're just getting that data and training the system. So how are you doing that?
Yeah, we're not asking them to do anything different. We're asking them to look at a different screen. We're asking them to use something that's far more efficient so they can do their jobs better. In the meantime, we're also learning from them, right? So it's a win-win. We're not simply asking them to give us the information that's been in their head and they've been within the organization for 20 years. We're just asking them to say, okay, here's a new system. Can you use it? Can you help us? Does it make your job more efficient, right? In the end, it's learning and it's helping us as an organization, but the goal is not to do that. That's the outcome of it. The goal is to say, hey, can I make you 20% more efficient so you can serve customers better, right? We're not in the business of taking people's jobs or looking to reduce. We're looking at ways to say, okay, how can you be more effective in your job and do more of the value-added services for our customers and less of the mundane, everyday tasks?
I really like that approach, right? So it's not like you have to do anything different. You just use a different system. And in the process, you capture the information. And then that becomes like a training set for the new people joining. I think that looks like a great strategy here.
Yeah, I mean, we've started a lot of the stuff we do now are pilots. Before it was really, we tried to launch whole scale across the organization and it really didn't go very well. And what we've done now is said, okay, who are our pilot programs and how do we get the learning and the training and get the systems ready to go and then leverage those people to train the rest of the organization because they become the advocates.
And you talked about, in a way, this is AI, right? So you talked a little bit about AI and how you are training the systems and the models and everything, right? So what other AI tools are you using or how is the adoption within DSG?
What's funny is we're seeing more adoption than we even thought, right? If you look at the systems and the diagnostics that we have in the networks, we're seeing AI tools being used across the organization. So it's not new to our employees, right? Our employee owners are out there finding ways to do things and they're doing it. What we're trying to do is harness that. So it's sales order automation, right? How do we make it more efficient than entering orders on a regular basis? We're talking about forecasting. How do we start using AI forecasting? Because it really is a probability engine, right? It hasn't quite reached that scale of being a reasoning engine, but it's a probability engine that needs to be trained. So how do we bring that in? Whether it's data warehousing to put all of our data in so that we're not talking across systems anymore, but trying to create that holistic picture and then start pulling pieces and parts. But they're very use case specific AI. So it's not just AI across AI. It's what is the business problem, the specific business problem we want to solve, and how do we solve that? And what is AI playing in that? And then how do you review it? Because you still need that human review. I talk about it like it's my toddler. Toddler, she's 8. But she thinks she knows everything, right? And every kid does. And that's exactly what AI thinks. It thinks it knows everything until you say, that's a really bad idea. Because they've trained this thing on limited knowledge. And now you've got someone to reflect on and say, you know what, that's not quite what it means. Let's tweak it.
Yeah, that's a great example, right? Just like how you teach a toddler, you keep teaching the system and then, it really gets better. And then also just the toddler, as he or she grows up, they realize, hey, okay, I've made mistakes. Let me fix it. So the AI also says, hey, you know what? Okay, I've made mistakes. Let me fix it. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. And it's great. I mean, that's what I tell my team too. We're going to make mistakes. We're not perfect. We're going to do the best we can. We're going to know when we make a mistake. We're going to fix it as fast as possible. We're going to move forward. But we learn something from it. It's not just a mistake and someone gets scolded for it. It's a learning moment and you just keep pressing forward.
And talking about technology investments, right? This is a question a lot of distributors have, especially mid-sized distributors, right? So when it comes to investing in technology, sometimes technology is expensive. So how do you look at that? How do you look at a technology investment? Let's say you're going to invest in a new technology. So what is your expectation?
I typically have the expectation that it's going to pay for itself in 6 to 12 months, right? It used to be you'd sign a 3-year contract and expect a 3-year contract would be ROI positive. It's moving so fast and there's so many things popping up with the efficiency gains and all the rest. Like if you can't really prove a business case for 6 to 12 months and enact it with a proof of concept and everything else, keep looking. You haven't solved the right problem, right? You've solved the symptom of the challenge and not the right problem because the right problem will start presenting itself. Yeah,
so get a ROI in 6 to 12 months. If it takes longer than that, that's a problem.
Yeah, if it takes longer than that, there's something wrong. And then there's something wrong either in the processes you put in place or the technology that you're trying to solve with the problem. And learn quick, right? You'll always sign a long-term agreement, right? Once you get there. But then it's how do you get to that knowledge of it's actually going to produce what you need it to produce?
And typically, right, so what percentage of my total revenue should be invested in technology, as a distributor?
I think it all depends. I mean, there's the infrastructure, which I'm going to say is that, 5 or 6%. That's the run the business every day. And then there's the growth pillars, which could be 5 to 10%, depending on what ROI you're looking for. If you're growing in a particular, segment, or if you're trying to push a particular agenda. We just launched an e-commerce site, a new e-commerce site 12 months ago. It took a significant lift to get that out the door. And then that investment comes down. And now it's generating its ROI. And so it's going to ebb and flow, but I typically think between 5 and 6% for just straight infrastructure, if not a little bit more, depending on what you've got. If it's old systems, it's probably going to cost you a little more for maintenance. But then kind of what's your investment strategy to move forward?
Absolutely. And you talked about e-commerce, right? So do you see a lot of adoption from your customers in terms of e-commerce as well?
We're starting to see it. We're starting to see it because people want the simplicity of it. We're dealing in an industry where people are on the run, they're mobile, right? They don't necessarily have time to come into the branch constantly, or when they come into the branch, they just want their stuff and they can get back on the road, right? Especially some of the larger customers. They don't necessarily want their plumber sitting around for an hour waiting. They would rather have someone have ready with will call and send it through. So we're seeing adoption of desktop still. We're seeing adoption from a mobile web. We're starting to see strategies within the organization for a native app, because that's a very different strategy from a consumer-facing perspective of what an app does versus what a mobile responsive website does.
And you recently won the Epicode Distribution Champion Award. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So tell us about that, right? So how does it make you feel, or why were you selected?
Yeah, we've been on Epicor since 2021, I think. We were on Mincron before. Because we're in so many different segments, so we're on Eclipse because of that. They've got multiple different offerings for different ones. I think Profit 21 is really their electrical distribution line. For us, Eclipse was the right choice because of the breadth of offering that we have. But it does everything from our sales order entry to accounting to, now that they've integrated in 25, their logistics company. It's all in one package. And we're still learning stuff about it. So that's the best part about it, is we're still learning how to use it better, be more effective in it. We're actually looking at a deeper partnership with them of how do we continue that momentum so that we can optimize it.
No, yeah. You talked about sales order automation, e-commerce, Epicor and all that, right? So yeah, it's very interesting you say that, right? Because that's exactly what the DC Cap integrator does as well. So we make systems talk to each other, automated, right? So let's say an order is placed on e-commerce, it just flows into the Eclipse ERP.
Okay.
And, two-way sync, so it's really interesting that you use all these systems, so that's great. There's a lot of talk about AI taking away jobs, and that's more prominent, especially in distribution. So what are you seeing there, and what are your thoughts?
I follow kind of the similar thought process as the CEO of NVIDIA, right? It's not AI that's going to take someone's job. It's someone that uses AI that's going to take your job. I was actually out running this weekend, and as I'm running, this person on an e-bike comes flying by me. And at first I thought, oh, that's kind of lazy, right? You're not really getting exercise. You're out and you're everything. And then I kind of reflected on it. I'm like, that's the equivalent of one of my employees using AI, right? I'm out here running, and that person just flew by me far more efficiently, and they're going to go a lot longer than I am. So how do I harness that mentality as I talk to my employee base of this is what we can do together?
Yeah, I really like that analogy. But I also think, so you still need to run. Right?
You do. You still need the exercise.
Yeah.
I'm not discounting the exercise, but when you get tired on the big hill and that bike kicks in, that's a little easier.
I think that's a great analogy, though. Right. So use AI, but it's not just AI. You need the human capital and the human work there.
You still need the skills. You still need the knowledge. You still need the drive, because you certainly can't teach that. AI just enhances all of those things when you put it in a package.
Well said. DSG also does a lot of work in terms of empowering the young workforce. You open education centers, and also you're opening a new facility in Fargo. Tell us about the work you're doing there.
Yes, we actually have our new corporate headquarters / distribution center opening in Fargo. And it's a big facility. I think it's 120,000 square feet total now. And it's super important to us because that's where we were founded, is Fargo. On top of that, we also have a scholarship program. So we know that people are retiring from the trades faster than people are coming into the trades. And our goal is to continue to foster that. One of our core beliefs is building futures. And so our job is to not only build futures for the organization, our employee owners, but also the futures of our communities and our tradespeople. So we offer scholarships once a year for people that are going to trade school.
And how can people apply for these scholarships, and what kind of people can apply for these scholarships? Who's your target market?
I mean, we're totally open. That's the best part, right? As long as you're going into some form of trade, the scholarship applications are available, and information is on dsgsupply.com. You'll find it there. And I mean, go ahead and apply, because we span from Michigan to Montana, there's a number of opportunities that we can do across the board.
And there's also a big opportunity in this space, right? So it's not just about technology and science, there's also a big need for tradespeople.
Yes.
And let's say, if I'm not too good at math and science, hey, I can always be good at a trade. And that's what you guys are trying to empower, correct?
100%, right? We're trying to empower the next generation to take the jobs that are needed, right? Mm-hmm. You can go to college if that's what you choose to do, but then there's this entire other area that is underserved that needs help. And our job is to try and figure out a way to fill it. Because, I mean, our country needs it. Our population needs it. Every city needs it. I mean, there's nothing you can do without these tradespeople.
So the theme of this podcast is driven, right? So how are you driven?
I tell my team this all the time. I have no quit in me. And I have a goal. I want to shoot for it, and I'm just going to go get it. If I look at where we want to be in 3 to 5 years, our business is growing, right? Our customers are super happy. We have one screen for all of our employees, right? For me, I just have that internal drive. I've owned my own businesses before. I was an entrepreneur. I know what it takes to get it done. That's one of the reasons I love DSG is it's very entrepreneurial, right? It's my decision and we go get it, but we socialize it and we figure it out.
You talked about one screen. Can you tell me about that?
Yeah, so it's a learning that I got burned in my brain from healthcare. Because most of these organizations grew by acquisition, when you call into the healthcare company to get information, they're typically looking at anywhere from 15 to 20 screens, depending on what information you're asking for, and they're trying to piece it all together. I'm pretty sensitive to that as I look at our employee experience internally. I don't want to create that same experience. So as you think through, okay, we're going to launch AI here, we're going to do these sales order entries here, we're going to do this here. Somehow you have to wrap all that. And the goal would be eventually to have that in a single screen where it's nice and clean for employees to leverage and do their jobs really well.
I really like that, right? So because I do something called the one-page talk. Let's say I meet with a team, right? Anything we want to see, right? Mm-hmm. Everything's got to be on that one page and no more than a page. I really like this approach.
Yeah. I mean, your mind on a web page can only do 3 or 4 things, right? If you think about your UX team and what they're going to tell you, they're going to tell you what are the top 3 things you want someone to do on this one page, because any more and they get lost.
And I would like to end with this question. What is something you're reading right now or something you're listening to?
So I'm reading Necessary Endings right now, which is a great book. If you haven't read it, the concept is everything has seasons. And they talk about a rose bush, and in order for a rose bush to really grow, you have to trim it. Right. But it's not just trimming for the sake of trimming. You have to be strategic on which branches are using more and which branches, and then the rose will actually bloom. Competing in the age of AI is a great one. That centers on the data sharing amongst an organization. Atomic Habits is another one that I just finished. I tend to read a lot just because that's my interest. And when I'm on the road, there's a lot of just books on tape because it's my downtime. But yeah,
So you like listening to audiobooks or you like to read? Or
I do both. Yeah, it depends on where I'm doing and where I'm going. If I'm in the car for a number of hours, I'll throw an audiobook on and then it'll be good to go.
Stephan, thank you so much. It's been great chatting with you. Thanks for sharing all your learnings. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This was fantastic. I appreciate it.
Thank you for joining our Driven by DC Cap podcast. Your support means a lot to us. If you enjoyed this episode, please click the like button and subscribe. Consider leaving us a review. Thank you for joining us.